Second. So today I want to explain to you about the pivot table. So I have the two Excel for comparison. You know, like how the first one we have, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 columns right here. I have the ID, agent's name, the sales territory, region, and total amount. If I sum them by the agent name, you know, then Jimmy will have two combination of United States, 5,000 plus 1,500. Jimmy will have that 6,500, as well as the Alex has combination of the same states, 4,250 plus 1,700 to get this 5,950. Dan will have this 8,900 combination of 4,500 and 4,400. The reason to do the pivot table, if you take a look at the second view right here. The second view right here, the agent name turn from rows to just one unique row right here. And then the regions from the rows turn to a column. And then the amount you kind of like cross between the agent and the region, but then you sum them, like Australia, Canada, India, United States. If I run this select statement, this is the output from this table. Okay, so yeah, so if I want to sum them by the amount number, right, you see we have 16 records right now. There is no aggregate functions, right? Just basically pure select everything from this pivot table, TBL table. But then if I sum this total amount, my record will change from 16 to 11 because some of the agent has the combination United States like this, correct? So if you want to achieve like this format, the pivot table is a good option to do it. When you include your ID on the aggregate function, this will ruin the sum because if you execute this command, this aggregate function right here with the ID, because it grouped by the ID. So you basically, if you do aggregate function on the total amount and you include the ID field, basically it will return the same output like on the first statement right here, 16 records and 16 records, because we group them by the ID. ID is very unique on each row. If you group them, you will get the unique rows on this second set. So that's why I use the CTE just to select my field without ID columns right here. Let me show you the difference with and without the CTE. So without the CTE, let me show you with the CTE first. So okay, so with the pivot table, I use the CTE just to select the 3 columns from the pivot TBL table without including the ID columns. I will explain to you why. So if I execute this query right here, then I'm getting the output what I want. We have the agent name unique on every rows, right? And the region turned from rows into columns. So the pivot operator is to turn rows to a columns. So in here I select my agent name from my CTE, right? And then I select the region, because what I'm going to turn rows to column is my region right here. That's why I'm selecting all the regions like Australia, Canada, India, United States on my select statement right here as columns. Okay, then I pointing this to my pivot CTE name, which is pivot underscore CTE. Then I have my pivot operator after from, and I have my opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis. Inside my parenthesis, that's how I do aggregate function, which is the total amount right here for my sales territory region. That's what I'm going to turn from rows to columns. So this is another syntax for to pivot for this column. In, then I will list all my regions right here, distinct regions. I put Australia, Canada, India, United States, and I alias this pivot as my pivot table. You can name this whatever you want, but in this example I alias this as a pivot table. So again, if I rerun this script, so I'm getting this cross-tab output as a pivot table. So turn pivot operator is to turn rows of the region to a columns. Okay. Yes, correct. Yeah, the reason I use a CTE, um, so you understand this part, right? So let's say I don't have CTE. I just basically pull from directly from pivot TBL. Even on my select statement, I choose agent name and my region, because I'm going to turn the regions rows to a column, so I have to list them as on the select statement right here. From my pivot TBL table, then I do a pivot. I want to sum the amount of this for my region columns. I want to sum them. In, I list all my regions values right here, and then I alias this. If I run the script, you see I'm getting a lot of no value. Do you know why? Because the ID columns included in this table right here. So when you do a pivot table, when you do a pivot operator, you have to analyze what columns will be included on your table source. As earlier I show you how to do sum with or without the ID. Without ID, we getting the output what we want. So basically, SQL sum the amount and group them by the agent name and the region, right? Including the ID on this aggregate function, it messes up the output because the ID is unique, but SQL will group them, because when you group them on the unique value like ID, you're getting the same output on like the first statement. So that's why you have to, you can do subquery or you can do CTE. With CTE, you turn this table to a table expressions. They call pivot CTE. So SQL will not recognize this as the pivot TBL from this table anymore. Instead, SQL will recognize this as the new table, which is the table common table expression from the CTE. So when we do sum aggregate function, it does not include the ID.